Listen to this editorial that appeared in the Atlantic Journal. The world is too big for us. Too much going on, too many crimes, too much violence and excitement. Try as you will, you get behind in the race in spite of yourself. It's an incessant strain to keep pace, and still you lose ground. Science empties its discoveries on you so fast that you stagger beneath them in hopeless bewilderment. The political world is news seen so rapidly you're out of breath, trying to keep pace with who's in and who's out. Everything is high pressure. Human nature can't endure much more. Would you agree that this editorial is representative of the mindset of today? You may be surprised to know that this editorial appeared in the Atlantic Journal on June 16, 1833. Not much has changed, has it? Or have things changed, but what is not changed is our inability to cope with change? Here's another way to frame the question. Why is it that certain people seem to cope well with change while others stumble again and again? What I want to talk to you about are transitions and how people deal with them. And I want to share with you what is perhaps a different way to prepare for and cope with change. Let me tell you the story of someone who seemed to cope well with change. It's the story of John Templeton. Who was John Templeton? Well, before there was Warren Buffett, there was John Templeton. America's stock market crash of 1929 was a powerful crash that started in October of that year after the Roaring '20s economic bubble finally popped. America experienced an era of great peace and prosperity during the '20s. After World War I, the so-called Roaring '20s economic and cultural boom was fueled by new technologies such as the radio and the automobile. Air flight was becoming common as well. From 1921 to 1929, the Dow Jones rocketed, creating many new millionaires. To the average investor, stocks were practically a sure thing. Few people actually studied the finances and underlying businesses of the companies that they invested in. Thousands of fraudulent companies were formed to hoodwink unsavvy investors. Most investors never even thought a crash was possible. In their minds, the stock market always went up. In 1929, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates several times in an attempt to cool the overheated economy and stock market. On Thursday, October 24, 1929, a spate of panic selling occurred as investors began to realize that the stock boom was actually an overinflated speculative bubble. Millionaire investors went bankrupt almost instantly when the stock market crashed on October the 28th and 29th. As a result of this crash, 12 million people were instantly out of work, and 12,000 became unemployed every day. 20,000 companies were instantly bankrupt, and 23,000 people ended their own lives, a big number at that time. While most bankrupt businessmen were taking their own lives in 1929, John Templeton had other ideas. Templeton pioneered global investments with the mission of promoting spiritual wealth and knowledge. Being born in a poor family did not hinder his rise to becoming one of the most highly regarded people in the world. He excelled in his studies and was the first person in his town to attend college. He attended Yale University, one of the most prominent and challenging academic institutions in the country. Unfortunately, the Depression affected his family greatly, and in his second year at Yale, his father told him he couldn't give him even $1 to go back to college. Undaunted, he got 3 jobs to support himself and complete his college education. He graduated first in his class and was named a Rhodes Scholar to Oxford, where he graduated with a law degree. Templeton entered the mutual fund industry, where he launched the Templeton Growth Fund. For each $10,000 that one person would have invested, it would have grown to $2 million 38 years later. The Templeton Growth Fund grew at an amazing rate of almost 15% a year until he sold it to the Franklin Group. Today, this fund is the longest-running global fund in the U.S. So what set Templeton apart from others who seemed to crumble at the door of adversity? Why did he respond to change the way he did? What did he possess that others didn't? What made Templeton so resilient to cope with change the way that he did? The answer to that question is this. Templeton possessed 5 mindsets that each one of us can learn and implement in our daily lives. These mindsets are: 1, a creative mindset; 2, a dynamic mindset; 3, a conductor mindset; 4, an impact mindset; and 5, a flow mindset. A creative mindset allows us to abandon the notion of working by a set of rules and toward working within specific limits and without fear. A dynamic mindset allows us to work and live not in fear of change, but where we welcome change and even pursue it. A conductor mindset allows us to direct and have control over many internal voices that bombard us and tell us what to think and how to act. An impact mindset frees us to not just do things for the sake of doing them, but to move toward and choose to do things that make a positive impact on those around us. A flow mindset helps us to see setbacks not as barriers to progress and growth, but as merely temporary detours on our way to success. There is a region in Puerto Rico where people with limited means live in houses made of wood. Periodically, a hurricane invades, creating waves that destroy these houses. As the waters recede, the dismantled wooden homes are carried out to sea. How would we respond if that happened to us? Perhaps we would do everything we could to make sure that the event never occurred again. We'd move further inland or to an elevated area away from the potential of damaging hurricanes. How do the Puerto Ricans respond? Well, these now homeless people wait for the stormy waters to subside and for the wood to float back to shore. Once the wood floats back to shore, the people then begin to rebuild their community. Homes are redesigned in different styles and configurations, but using the very same wood. The research of a Canadian neurosurgeon uncovered some dramatic truths about the human mind's reaction to change. He conducted various experiments which proved that when a person is forced to change a fundamental belief or opinion, the brain undergoes a series of nervous sensations equivalent to distressing torture. Change does not have to be torture, however. By adopting the 5 mindsets, we can all learn to not just cope with change, but to embrace it as necessary to our success.